You're about to see an all-out ambush on Donald Trump from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, aka Stromboli from Pinocchio. He's actually signaling to her during this meeting, and he's doing anything he can to try to get a rise out of Donald Trump, including being very close to him and pointing with his finger right at him in a very confrontational way. I'm going to show you why this was a planned attack from Schumer and Pelosi. They had this thing planned beforehand, and their goal was to get an emotional rise out of Trump, to throw him off in a time that he was not expecting it. And at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you why this one interaction that we're going to break down right here changed the entire landscape for the upcoming election. I'm Barron Cruz. I'm a social strategist, and I teach you the social skills that you need to get what you want out of life. I break down these situations so you can understand exactly what's going on, to really be able to read the nuances, because that will enable you, next time Jerry comes up to you in your office and he's trying to talk you down, you know what he's doing and you know how to confront that to look really good. All right, so let's roll the video. Watch how Nancy Pelosi starts this thing off.
There are no votes in the House, a majority of votes, for a wall, no matter where you start.
Exactly right. You don't have
If I needed the votes for the wall in the House, I would have them in one session,
Well,
would be done.
Go do it.
Ding, ding, ding. All right, what did we notice just from the very start there? We noticed that they're gonna team up. Pence is over there thinking about what steakhouse they're going to tonight. He's totally checked out or just doesn't have anything to say. But watch how quickly Schumer backs her up when she says the first thing that she says.
For a wall, no matter where you start.
Exactly right.
Exactly
If I
right.
needed the votes for the wall in the House, I would have them in one session,
Well, then
would
go
be
do
done.
it. Go do it.
It doesn't help because we need 10 Democrats in
No,
the
don't put
Senate.
it on the Senate. Put it on the negotiation.
Okay, let me ask you this, and we're doing this.
Okay, look at Stromboli's hand. If you've never seen Pinocchio, if you're under the age of 30, Stromboli is the puppeteer. And he kind of controls the marionettes with the strings. But the whole time, I'm not going to go back, but about 10 seconds ago, he did it again. He's encouraging her to say, whether it's something they had planned or just something that he thinks she should say. He keeps pointing at her like that, kind of just like her cheerleader. Like, yeah, now's your time to go. Go say what we did. Say what we practiced. I'm not sure if it's something they practiced or if he's just encouraging her to keep talking, but they've definitely shown they're a united front. And we know that. We know they're on the same team. But it's just really interesting how they go in this way. It makes me think that they really had something big planned for this meeting.
In a very friendly manner. It doesn't help for me to take.
And notice a little bit of lack of respect when Trump says we're having a conversation, a friendly matter. Look at kind of the coy, sarcastic smile on Pelosi's face.
Okay, let me ask you this, and we're doing this in a very friendly manner. It doesn't help for me to take a vote in the House where I will win easily with the Republicans.
You will not win.
It doesn't help to take that vote because I'm not going to get the vote
Don't put
of
it
the
on
Senate. I need 10
Senate.
senators.
The fact is, you do not have the votes in the House.
Nancy, I do. And we need
Well,
border
let's take the
security.
vote,
Nancy,
we'll find out.
Nancy.
Okay, what was that strategy? If you see my old videos, it's an old strategy for when someone tries to talk over you. What does Trump do? The old repeater technique. She starts talking. He says her name 3 times. In this video clip, you're going to notice basically it's just a tutorial on what to do when people are trying to talk over you. And this is number 1. He starts out by repeating her name until he can talk over
We
her.
need
Well,
border
let's take the
security.
vote, we'll
Nancy,
find out.
Nancy, we need border security. It's very simple.
We do not want to shut down the government. You have called 20 times to shut down the government. You say, I want to shut down the government. We don't. We want to come to an agreement. If we can't come to an agreement, we have solutions that will pass the House and Senate right now.
What did you notice here? I think this is when Trump is noticing. Let me actually go back to it. Look at this body language. Look at this aggressive finger point. This is like confrontational at this point. You don't point like that at somebody in close quarters. That's very aggressive. Try to do that in public, and you might get a rise out of somebody with some aggression, potentially starting a fight when you do something like that. And I think right here, you can see a bit of stress on Trump's face. Trump's realizing what's going on right now at this point. He realizes, I think he thought because this is going to be like a press thing with all the cameras, let everyone in, it was going to be like The Apprentice where everyone just kind of goes along with him, or at least people are more agreeable to what he says. But he realizes these guys have been planning this for a long time, and this is something that's like a big push to throw him off. He's trying to get him emotionally engaged. He's trying to get him emotionally reactive. What's the best way to do that? to almost physically confront somebody, get right in his
20
face,
times.
point that finger, and listen to his
Shut down
tone
the
of
government.
voice.
You say, I want to
Fists.
shut down the government. We don't. We want to come to an agreement. If we can't come
What else did you notice right here? Who's he talking to right now?
To shut down
he's
the government.
pointing at
He said,
Trump. Now who's he talking to? He's
I
talking
wanna
to the
shut down.
cameras. He's talking to the people behind. When you address somebody straight up face to face, that's communication between you two. You're trying to exchange ideas. What's Schumer trying to do? He's trying to prove a point to everyone else. At this point, like I said, I feel like this is something that was a big deal for them, a big kind of coming out moment where they're kind of saying, listen, we're not going to go along with everything that Trump has been saying. This is going to be our big gusto point and catch him off bounce. And now he goes to the cameras to kind of appeal to get almost like it seems like, hey, we're getting everybody in on it, right? He's talking, hey, what do you guys think? Hey, we got a plan. We're doing this, not even talking to Trump. And that's actually a bit of disrespect. When you're not even looking, watch as this conversation progresses. Schumer and Pelosi will finish their sentences not even looking at Trump. And that's definitely a disrespectful sign, showing like I don't even have to look at you when I'm talking. Just like body orientation, when you roll away from the person you're talking to. Let's say, for instance, you're squared up to them chest to chest. That's the most respectful way you can communicate with somebody. It's also can be a bit of a supplicative way to communicate with somebody. And then if you roll off just 45 degrees, kind of like he is right here in this shot, it's a little more aloof. It's a little more rapport neutral, even rapport breaking. If you're not familiar with those terms, just basically means a little less respect. What they're saying in this interview is basically, we're not buying into your frame. All the way back to the early debates, Trump controlled the frame of all those guys he was debating against. And in interviews and in situations like this, people usually jump into his frame. It's not a sign of disrespect by not jumping on his frame. What it communicates is we're on the same level. I'm not putting you on a pedestal and just buying into your frame and everything you're saying, acting like that's the status quo and I'm the one trying to chip away to get little changes. They're saying peer-to-peer communication right now, which when you're talking to a president in any country on any level is a bit disrespectful because the president is the highest position within the government. So what I'm seeing right now is a bit of disrespect, and I'm seeing a change in tonality, a change in the communication, and I think it's something that they were hoping to execute just like this previously when they were planning for it.
on the government. We don't. We want to come to an agreement. If we can't come to an agreement, we have solutions that will pass the House and Senate right now and will not shut down the government, and that's what we're urging you to do.
It sounds like an angry, like CEO of a company talking to one of his high-up managers, right? It seems like he almost feels like he has higher social value in this communication right now. Look at Trump's face. Trump's not liking this at all, but because he's driving so hard, he's using strong tonality, his body language, it's not that easy to talk over him right now.
Not threaten to shut down the government
You don't
because you,
wanna
let me
shut
just
down the
finish,
government,
because you can't get
The
your
last
way.
time you shut it down, you
Yeah,
got
let
killed.
me say something, Mr. President.
So he didn't even hear what Trump just said right there. He says, let me finish. And then Trump kept talking. And he said, let me just say something, Mr. President. That's his way to prevent Trump from talking over him.
You
Here
just
we go,
say
watch it again.
because you can't get
The
your
last
way.
time you shut it down, you
Yeah,
got
let
killed.
me say something, Mr. President. You just say my way or we'll shut down the government. We have a proposal that Democrats and Republicans will support to do a CR that will not shut down the government. We urge you to take
And
it.
if it's not good border security, I
It
won't
is
take
very
it.
good border
And if it's not
security.
good border security, I won't take it.
And I think that's a fine move from Trump. You know, he's clearly sticking to the border security issue with this. I mean, they're talking about a wall and a different solution. But Trump comes back to it and says, hey, the key concern here is border security, and all this talk that you've got going here, if it doesn't have border security, I won't support it. Look at Trump right now, though. Look at his body language. He's not comfortable. He is thrown a bit on tilt, and this is one of the first times I've seen him like this, and I think it's because he didn't expect it. Because when you've seen him with dissent around him, like in the early debates, I mean, he lives in that environment. He's one of the very best at that. I just think they caught him completely not ready for this, and he's taken a little time to orient to kind of the aggression and the stance and the dissent that's coming from him.
We want to do the same thing we did last year, this year. That's our proposal.
What's Pence doing over there? What's going through his mind right now?
If it's good then, it's good now, and it won't shut down the government.
Chuck, we can build a
But that's
much
it.
bigger
Let's
section with
debate,
more money.
Let's debate in private.
We need border security. The wall is a part of border security. You can't have very good border security without the wall, no.
And the experts say you can do border security without a wall, which is wasteful and doesn't solve the problem.
It totally solves the
But I don't wanna
problem.
When the president brags that he won North Dakota and Indiana, he's in real trouble.
All right, that's just a crack. That has nothing to do with anything they're talking about. And I know they cut from one thing to another. That wasn't a seamless transition. He didn't say that right after that in real time. But to cut to that, that's such a canned crack. Like, he was waiting on that. Look at his face after he said it. Like, he grabs his wrist. He's a little nervous. It was probably a bit of a poor delivery. He just really wanted to get that in. And it just came, to me, that didn't come off as smooth. It sounded like something he was sitting on, kind of something canned. Let's hear him say it again and see what Trump said.
He's in real trouble. And the president brags that he...
And Pelosi, she's clearly just behind the ringleader. The ringleader, Stromboli, over here to the right, talks over her more than he talks over Trump.
Totally solves the
But I don't wanna
problem.
When the president brags that he won North Dakota and Indiana, he's in real trouble.
When
I did.
Let me say, came in here in good faith, and we're entering into this kind of a discussion in the public view.
But it's not bad, Nancy.
No,
It's
but
called transparency.
Okay, I think that was a wise move from Trump, and I think that was an honest statement. I don't think he at all was saying that to sound good. I think that Trump was caught off guard with the intent that these two had. But now that what Pelosi is saying is, this is getting kind of hot and heavy. This is being recorded by the cameras of all the news stations. Why don't we talk about this in public? And Trump's saying, no, this is fine. This is the kind of transparency that I want.
No, it's not transparency when we're not stipulating to a set of facts, and when we want to have a debate with you about saying we confront some of those facts without...
You know
saying
what?
to the
We need
public,
border security.
this
That's
isn't
what we're going to be
true.
talking about.
So
Border.
Trump is like, she's just kind of dragging. She's not making much sense. She doesn't have much oomph in what she's saying. And Trump just cuts her off and says, listen, we need border security. That's what we're talking about. Just in a way, he was sub-communicating. What you're talking about is not important.
Border security. If we don't have border security, we'll shut down the government. I also know that, Nancy's in a situation where it's not easy for her to talk right now, and I understand that, and I fully understand that. We're going to have a good discussion.
Okay, what did he say there? He took 4 sentences to say one thing because he was trying to couch it. So what he wanted to do was make a crack at Pelosi and say, I understand she's in a tough situation. I can't talk a lot right now. But what did he say to make it sound like it wasn't just a one-line crack? Well, he repeats it, and then he ends it with, we're going to have a good discussion. But Pelosi's got something to say about that herself.
I also know that, Nancy's in a situation where it's not easy for her to talk right now, and I understand that, and I fully understand that. We're going to have a good discussion, and we're going to see what happens. But we have to have border security.
Mr. President, please don't characterize the strength that I bring to this meeting as the leader of the House Democrats who just want
So
to be
incredibly weak. She's not making sense. She's jumping around with her words, but she just doesn't sound right. She's got no strength. Listen to this again. This is her big moment. She says, don't categorize my strength as this and this. I thought this was just weak. She was actually weak throughout this whole thing. But at the same time, I will say, at least she stepped in and didn't let Trump just say that and not say anything. At least she stood up for herself.
We're going to have a good discussion.
She could have been a little bit more smooth with her words.
But we have to have border security.
Mr. President, please don't characterize the strength that I bring to this meeting as the leader of the House Democrats who just won a big victory.
Elections
But
have consequences, Mr. President.
Let me just say.
That's right. And that's why the country's doing so well.
I like that. That's something you can count on from Trump. In any interaction, you can count on him to get a zinger. And even ABC News ends it on this. But they say, yeah, there's consequences to every election. That's what they say. And he says, yeah, that's why the country's doing so well. And that was pretty well timed. I like the way he finished that.
Just won a big victory.
Elections
But
have consequences, Mr. President.
Let me just say.
That's right. And that's why the country's doing so well.
But
And Pence just loved it. Pence thought that was the best crack he's heard all week. He can't see it. He can't see it on his face. But that's what he's actually thinking. So how does this change everything? Well, here's what I see. If you noticed in the debates, all the different debates, nobody could play on Trump's level socially. Nobody had the tonality. Nobody had the confidence. Everyone got sucked into his frame. Now, this is the first time that I've seen him be thrown off tilt, and a guy like Schumer who's going to come at him and not be intimidated. I'm not talking about Schumer specifically, but I think that they're going to start running more candidates that are more like Schumer after they see how this is so much more effective. Because usually Trump is just able to outwit people. He just has better, he's just quicker on his feet. He has great tonality and he has ultimate confidence in what he's saying is right. So you need somebody who can keep up with him on the wit, who's quick, who's confident as well, and speaks strong. I'm not sure if they're going to coach him to put the one finger in his face when they're talking to him, but you can see here, if you look at this from an unbiased perspective, this was a challenge for Trump with Schumer. This was something where if you saw those two guys on a debate, Trump's not going to be able to run over him like he did everyone else. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Democratic Party sees this and they start kind of pruning some candidates who have more tendencies like that of real authority, something very much like Trump has, to go against him. I think that this, the way I kind of explained it, I actually had to consult with my political advisor on this one, but the way I see it is this is almost like when you play poker. You're in Vegas and it's 3 a.m. You've been playing poker for 8 hours, you're grinding, and you finally see a tell in a player that you're playing against. And if you don't play poker, a tell just means something to indicate if they really have a good hand or not, because people are always bluffing and trying to get you to think the opposite of what they have. This was a tell that I think Trump is the most vulnerable against somebody like Schumer. I think that just like, boxers have different matchups, MMA fighters have different matchups that are good for him, right? A stand-up fighter is a bad matchup for a ground guy. For a wrestler, because if the wrestler gets him on the ground, he's done. This kind of guy like Schumer, and we've just seen one of these, but I think we're going to see more people with different strengths and weaknesses similar to this, and they're going to hone in more and more on what would be someone good to go up against Trump, because so far he's done so well and he just outclasses people socially, and it comes across that way. Of course, there's still plenty of people that think Trump's social skills are childish and vulgar and non-presidential, and there's a fair argument to be made about that, but I'll tell you what, they're effective. And the fact that he's gotten voted in shows it's starting to be something a little more that people aren't so completely concerned about. And that's why I think if a candidate runs against him who is maybe a step in this direction, maybe not as much as Trump was from, the other guys in the debate, it was just like the same dude over and over again. And there's Trump, he stands out so much. But somebody who is a step in that direction that can compete with Trump, I think that could be a big turning point in the way this whole next election is set up. Mike Pence doesn't have the social skill that Trump has and doesn't have the social skill that anyone in the room has there. He looks outclassed. And how does it manifest itself? Well, he just sits there and he says nothing with a dead look on his face. He doesn't want to be involved. He feels like he has nothing to contribute. He's scared that if he says something, he's going to sound dumb and Trump's going to be like, what are you talking about? You're not right. Or one of these other people. It's an aggressive environment. Here's the issue though. I'm a social coach, right? I talk to people like this all the time. The majority of people, nobody really understands this. The majority of people would be like Pence. Most people are not comfortable in these situations. They don't know the moves to make socially, and it's a crippling move. You think he doesn't want to say something? Of course he does. He knows people are going to be watching this and say, hey, look at that bump on a log over there. He wants to, but he's crippled by fear and the notion that he doesn't know what to say. And if you feel that way when you're out at a happy hour on a first date, I'd really encourage you to get that handled, because the confidence that can come once you know what's going on around you socially is so high. You know that when you go up to somebody, you can get a good response, rather than, well, 50% of the time I get a good response and 50% of the time I don't. And if that's something you want to improve on, I've got a program called the Social Invincibility Program that's going to educate you so you can understand everything that's going on around you socially, so you know how to pipe in. If Pence took the Social Invincibility Program, he wouldn't be sitting there like he's 2 hours into rigor mortis. He would be contributing and understanding what's going on around him. I should see if I can get his intern on the line to fire him over a free, or maybe just a discounted password. But if you're interested in that, you can go to socialinvincibility.com or touch or click up here in the right corner and check it out, and I'll walk you through a little bit more about the program. Now, on a personal note, I live in Dallas, Texas, and I was on a first date last week, and there were 3 guys at the bar that tried to clown on me. You know, when you're outside of a professional political situation like this, the playing field is a bit more grimy, right? People can do anything they want. The dude actually made fun of my haircut in front of the girl. And if you're interested in how I handled that, you can click on this video right here to check it out. Or if you haven't seen this video right here, you can click there to watch it. I'll talk to you there. In front of your date, what do? Do you have the answer to this? Today, I'm going to walk you through a story that happened to me.